Good morning. This is Deborah Arca with the Patheos Book Club, and my guest today is Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox is an internationally acclaimed theologian working in the creation spirituality tradition of Christianity, and he's the best-selling author of 30 books, including Original Blessing, A Spirituality Named Compassion, and The Coming of the Cosmic Christ. Good morning, Matthew Fox.
Good morning, Deborah. Good to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. I was saying that the last time I saw you was in Estes Park at the Cosmic Mass, and we were having a wonderful experience together.
I'm glad, yes. I think last time we saw each other, we were both dancing fiercely.
We were both dancing. It was wonderful to see. So we're here today talking about your new book, Occupy Spirituality, A Radical Vision for a New Generation. It coincides with the second anniversary of the Occupy movement. So tell us just first a little bit about the book, kind of the idea and the inspiration behind it.
We think it's very important and timely book. As you say, it is the second anniversary of Occupy, and people say, oh, well, Occupy's disappeared. No, it hasn't. It's morphing, of course, as all things subject to evolution do. Mm-hmm. But Occupy began, of course, in Tunisia and Cairo, and of course that particular revolution has been hijacked twice. That's the way they see it there. But it doesn't mean that the principles are not alive and well. My definition of Occupy is that it is an intuition about justice and injustice. It's a moral intuition. It's about conscience, whether that be in New York City, Istanbul, or Cairo. The Occupy spirit is alive and well, and it's taking on different forms, of course, but that's what this book celebrates, and because we think it's one way of talking about this new generation. The new generation is inheriting such a crippled planet, and they're asking, I think, more radical questions. They have to, because really so many are not part of the economic system as it now stands. Many are living in community and working just half-time jobs, but learning that, hey, life is interesting when you don't have to work or go to work 40, 50 hours a day. They have more time for conversation, for spiritual practices, for gardening, for political protest, and conviviality and friendship. Yeah. So I think there's a real radical shift in values going on here, and I think the Occupy movement is a metaphor for that shift.
It seemed like there was something else really important you wanted to do with this book. It felt like as a Christian, as a spiritual person, you and Adam both wanted to help these young people ground this movement in something deeper, in a spirituality. And I was really struck by how beautiful that was. That you wanted to help provide a framework and a grounding for this, so this movement would realize there's something deeper going on.
Yes, and so that it would be sustainable, too.
Sustainable.
Yes, so spirituality brings that dimension of perseverance, really. It's not enough just to act and react. Our reptilian brains do that. Mm-hmm. America did that when it went to war in Iraq. Mm-hmm. And that's not enough. We have to bring in that mammal brain that is about compassion and even embracing the enemy, not just making it us versus them. So, and obviously we have marvelous examples like Gandhi and King and Mandela and Dorothy Day and others who, through a spiritual depth, are able to wrap their moral outrage into something that's bigger than just the outrage. And, of course, Gandhi said he learned this from Jesus, from the West, mm-hmm. that the no of the prophets is important, but it too has to be wrapped in love.
Yeah, and you call that sacred activism.
Yes, sacred activism.
Right.
And one of the lessons we've learned from interviewing all these young people is the way they put it, that contemplatives have to become activists today, and activists have to become contemplatives. Right. We have to mix these two, like never before in history. I think it's a luxury to think of contemplatives as living in monasteries, in kind of an isolated setting. I think that's part of the past. Today we can't afford that. There's too much collapsing on the earth, including the the Earth systems themselves, with climate change and all. There are too many issues that have to be addressed with a full heart. And that's what the contemplative tradition is supposed to do for us, is to develop our hearts. So we have to be sacred activists. We have to be contemplative activists. We have to be mystics and prophets at the same time.
Right. And another important piece for you two seemed to be, as you were listening to these young people, and as you know from your own experience, I know, is that the inner spiritual is very important too. That younger people are less concerned about following the doctrines. They're less concerned about doctrines in general, but very much bringing in lots of different influences from different traditions that they find meaningful for them into their own spirituality. So there's something about inner spirituality and also intergenerational in this movement that you find compelling.
That's right. To me, what distinguishes spirituality from religion is experience. The spiritual dimension of religion is the experiential dimension. Another word for that is mysticism. It's the psalmist saying, taste and see that God is good. You have to do the tasting. So that is the dimension that's brought in then into the struggle against injustice. And we do find in this generation that they're very ecumenical. And that's one of the questions we asked in our survey too. And time and again they talk about how they draw from many traditions. One woman, a 28-year-old young woman, said that she was raised Protestant Christian, but she became a Muslim. And then now she's a Muslim, she feels freer to relate to Jesus. In fact, she says, I call myself a Muslim whose sheikh is Jesus. Now that's whole new language. No one's ever uttered a sentence like that before. It shakes up Islam and it shakes up Christianity. And I think that's where this generation is at. They're not tied to a particular orthodoxy, as you say. The doctrine does not come first. The practice comes first. Call it orthopraxis, and the practice of justice and love. And that doesn't mean we don't draw on various traditions. And certainly the Christian tradition has a lot to offer. But I think we're in a time of what I'd call in my autobiography post-denominational Christianity.
Yeah. Okay, one last question, and it's a two-part question. What would you like to say to the elders of the faith right now as a way of what would you like to say to them about how we embrace this next generation? And then what would you like to say to this new generation about how they go about living out their faith in the world?
Well, again, that was a whole chapter in our book, the chapter on elders. And it was so interesting. We asked that in our surveys, and like 99% of the young people said they want elders, but they can't find them. The elders are not available. They're off in the golf courses market or something. I think elders have to wake up. And I talk about moving from retirement to refirement.
Love that.
And leaving a gift behind for them, the gift of wisdom. So we need this intergenerational wisdom. Now, another complaint from the young people was when they do find elders, very often they talk too much. That they're not good listeners.
Yeah.
Which is another way of saying, I think, that this new generation is facing issues that other generations have not faced. And so the elders have to do more deep listening and not just kind of dishing out opinions without that deep listening. So I think that's a really important dimension to this whole spiritual movement, that the young and the old get together and that the old do a lot of listening as well as a certain amount of sharing.
Right.
The second part of your question was what?
And what would you like to say to young folks that are wanting to, that are part of this movement or feeling called to this movement?
Well, to give yourself generously, and find allies, find community. That's all important. It's not a Lone Ranger exercise at all. And again, I think that this comes through in the Occupy practice that we see all over the world. Really, that it is about finding allies. It's about values. So it's about finding allies, and many of them may be older people, not just people your own generation, but to get strong, to develop your heart, because courage, there's no spirituality without courage. And this is one of the lessons that the young can teach the older ones too, by standing up and remaining nonviolent, and of course, and learning what you learn in jail. This is part of what goes on, is what we learn by subtraction. Meister Eckhart, the great mystic, says the soul grows by subtraction, not by addition. Mm-hmm. So, and finding that some of your allies may have been dead for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I just quoted Meister Eckhart. He was a great mystic prophet, a sacred activist of the 14th century.
You're a fan of Howard Thurman. You quote him quite a bit in the book, and I found lots of wisdom in his words as well. So thank you so much. This book, Occupy Spirituality, is really fantastic. I highly recommend it for elders, youngers, and everyone in between. I think it's such a great window into this generation whom, as older people in the church, everyone wants to know how to reach this next generation or how to be with them. And this is such a wonderful guidebook for not only understanding, but also embracing what's coming and embracing their hearts. So thank you, Matthew Fox, for your time today. And I hope you all come to the Patheos Book Club and read lots more. There's excerpts. There's going to be a lot of bloggers blogging about the book and how it resonated with them. So join us there. Thank you again, Matthew Fox, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Good
Take
to be
care.
with you. Bye now.